Howdy, friends, and welcome to another great American campground located near the Cumberland Gap National Park near Middlesboro, Kentucky. The park is located near the junction of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. It is about 65 miles north of Knoxville, Tennessee, and about 135 miles south of Lexington, Kentucky. The famous Wilderness Trail was used by settlers as early as the 1700s as they traveled along the escarpment of the Appalachian Mountains and looking for a pass up into the territory of what is Kentucky and northward to the Ohio River Valley. The Gap was named after the Duke of Cumberland, who was a son of King George II. The trail through the Gap was used by bison and several other American tribes as they went back and forth. Daniel Boone took a crew through the Gap to change the trail into a road, and it was then used by some 300,000 settlers in the next 35 years as settlers moved west. The park has 8 loops, with the outer 2 being group camping sites. We will look at each campsite in loops A through F. Loop B and C are the only loops with electricity, and water is found near the restrooms and throughout the campground, but not at each individual site. Be sure to check out the campground worksheet found in the video description that I put together to help you find your perfect campsite. From primitive to electric, to sites good for mobility impaired or wheelchair campers, all of the sites have abundant shade. We were lucky enough to be there in the fall when the trees were showing off their brilliant colors. Let's start our tour by checking out Loop A, which has some rather overgrown primitive sites, along with parking pads and picnic tables up and downhill from each other. I believe this loop is best suited for tents and small campers as you look at each individual site. Loop B is the first loop with 50 amp electric service in each site. Some have newer asphalt driveways, and be sure to check the dimensions of each campsite on recreation.gov because the links do vary from site to site. Some were very short, some were plenty long. There are only 2 designated ADA sites, and they are in Loop B, which are sites number 6 and number 8 by the restrooms. I did find about 6 other sites that were flat enough and spacious enough for wheelchair users, but they were just dirt and gravel sites, which is just fine until it rains. Loop C had a lot of nice new asphalt driveways and some really pretty sites. They have different sizes, so be sure to double check on the recreation.gov site. Loop D has quite a few primitive sites, and some of them I call bi-level because the driveway is on one level and the picnic and camping area on a totally different level. These aren't bad sites for tent camping, but it can be hard to traverse if you have an RV and need to constantly go back and forth. Just important information you need to know before you go. Loop E has some nice sites, with some being relatively flat and others that are kind of lumpy with mounds and hills and elevation issues throughout. I found that Loop F is probably the most primitive loop, but it does have some nice sights if you're boondocking and enjoy the forest. Well, friends, I hope you've enjoyed this campground tour of the Wilderness Road Campground near the Cumberland Gap National Park. It is a great area to camp and can be rather full, so be sure to check recreation.gov to book your campsite. Also, check out the Cumberland Gap National Park website where you can find hiking trails and the history of the region. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss my next campground review. And until next time, so long.